My name is Mark Meierhoffer. I'm 65 years old. I was born in St. Joseph, Missouri.
All right. What was your house like when you were growing up?
We lived in two homes. Our first home was very, very small. My father was a family funeral director in St. Joseph, and our little house was right next to the funeral home. So we were constantly monitoring the business. He had an ambulance that went in and out at all times of the night and day. My father finally, when I was 13 years old, bought another house away from the funeral home that was a very nice two-story home in a wooded neighborhood with a cul-de-sac, very quiet. And my mother was ecstatic.
What was your favorite thing to do for fun when you were growing up?
I think the best thing we did, my dad would take my brother and me to St. Louis every summer for a long weekend to see the Brooklyn Dodgers play the St. Louis Cardinals, because mostly it was a tradition of three men of the family getting away together to share a fun weekend of baseball and being away from my mother and my sister. So not that they were bad, it was our family getaway, and I was an avid baseball fan back then. So.
Do you remember any fads from your youth? Popular hairstyles, clothes?
Well, when I was later on, when growing up in my college years, the hair got longer, from the basic flat tops down to what was going through with the hippies back, and we talked about Woodstock at dinner. And the hairstyles really changed back in the 70s. But growing up, most kids had flat tops or short haircuts, not buzz cuts, but just short cropped hair.
What world events had the most impact on you while you were growing up?
Well, two. One was when President John Kennedy got shot, assassinated. I think I was a freshman in high school, freshman or sophomore in high school, and I remember I was going to a Catholic high school then, and one of the brothers came in. It was during my English class, and said President Kennedy had been shot, and the teacher said, "Well, is he alive or dead?" And the brother said, "I don't know." That was just a shocking turn of events. It really shaped my life. And then, I grew up when we had our first moonshot. We were entering outer space after the Russians had shot their Sputnik up. So those are two major life events.
What stories have come down to you about your parents, grandparents, or distant ancestors?
Well, my parents, it's funny when you grow up, and you'll probably hear this too, as you get older, your parents really don't tell you many stories about their shortcomings. My father, who was, like I said, a funeral director, there was a local brewery in town in St. Joseph, and he took my grandfather's hearse when he was a kid. They stole a keg of beer at the brewery, and turned out to be somebody did a goose from a dead stop, and the keg got loose and fell out of the back of the hearse, broke the door, and I never heard that growing up. I heard from my father's friend. With very little. It was right after the Depression. My parents did a great job of raising us. We were comfortable. We were not affluent by any means. My father was building a business much as your dad is doing right now, and most of the money he made, he redeployed back into business to make it bigger, better. They had something to pass along to my brother, who's now passing that business along to his son. So we had a very good upbringing. I'm very fortunate.
Are there any special heirlooms, photos, Bibles, or other memorabilia that have been passed down in your family?
Well, we've passed down, my dad was in World War II, so he was a pilot in the Navy. And so we passed down some navigation maps that he had. They were silk/linen maps, and that's how they navigated off the stars and off the sunshots. And so those are some neat things, and some heirloom jewelry that my mother had passed along to my sister, which probably makes more sense if she got that stuff.
What about your dad's experience in World War II?
My dad was, as I said, a Navy pilot. He was in college when World War II started, so he was out of college. He never graduated, actually. Left college, went to Pensacola, Florida, where he went through naval flight training, got his wings, and then flew a plane called a PBY. It was actually a patrol plane land-based, so he had, as a Navy pilot, you had do a carrier qualification. All Navy pilots and Marine pilots had to learn how to land on an aircraft carrier, even though they may not have done that later on in their life. But he served over in the South Pacific in the Philippines area. And he had some traumatic experiences with some of the Philippine. There was an insurgency in the Philippines even back in World War II. When we retaken the Philippines, when MacArthur went back after it surrendered, his bomber was based, or his patrol plane was based out of there. But they had problems with communist insurgents even back in 1944, 45 or so. And but he was lucky. He came back in one piece and never got shot down. So,
what was/is your profession, and how did you choose it?
Well, I'm a CPA. I still, even though I don't practice with an accounting firm anymore, I'm on my own. I chose it because I took accounting in college and liked it. I liked business, and I thought I'd heard that really, if you pursue this field, that after I got out of school and got out of the Navy and came back to work for an accounting firm in Kansas City, you see all sorts of businesses that are clients of the firm. You see get all sorts of experiences in various industries and companies. And it's just a broadening experience that you use the accounting profession or the accounting discipline to understand business. I got my CPA certificate. I worked for an accounting firm, Price Waterhouse, now known as Price Waterhouse Coopers. I was in the tax department there, and then left there, went to Marion Laboratories, Mary Merrill Dow. It was founded by Ewing Kaufman, who brought the Royals to Kansas City. Then went to work for a company called Rival Manufacturing as their CFO that makes the crock-pot slow cookers. So went from pharmaceuticals or a high margin, high cash flow to household appliances that were low margin. And,
of all the things that you learned from your parents, what do you feel was the most valuable?
Honesty, integrity, and treat people as you want to be treated. They were both my parents. Again, St. Joseph was a relatively small town, so you had to maintain a reputation of integrity and high standards. And my dad, being the business that he was, had to be viewed with integrity, or else he would not have had a business, a funeral business that would not have survived had he been something other than that.
What is the one thing you want most people to remember about you?
That's the old question, what goes on your tombstone? I think the only thing I want is that I'm a good person and I've made a difference in some people's lives here on a positive basis.
What did you and your friends do when you got together?
Well, what stage of my life?
Growing up.
Well, when we started driving, we would tend to get in some trouble. We would
naturally
use our cars to things that we shouldn't have been doing. We hung out, did a lot of cruise in our cars. We'd all, just like 20 cars. No one would ever pair up with anybody in a car. We all had to drive the other car, our own cars. So,
how did you get to school?
Well, in grade school I walked. In high school, the next door neighbor had a 1929 Model A Ford. There were four of us in the neighborhood, and there was only the bench seat in the front, so we would have to jump start that car every morning, run it down our street, push it, get us jump started, and that's how we got to school on it.
When did your family acquire its first car? What make and how much did it cost?
Well, I don't remember how much it cost. It was the first car I remember is a 1953 Chevrolet.
Yeah.
It was automatic, and not automatic, with a stick shift, black car, funeral car, but that was a family car we used it. First car I had was a 1966 Buick Skylark that was given me by my parents after my senior year in college.
Did you know how much that cost?
I don't. It was a lot back then,
yeah.
but it was below $10,000. Maybe $6,000 or $7,000, but that was big money back then.
All right, and this is a big one. Did you or your spouse go into military service?
Well, I went into military service. As I said, we were talking at dinner that In my sophomore year in college, I guess that would have been 1968, 67 or 68, we had the lottery for the draft. There was a draft back then for people to go into the military during the Vietnam era war. My draft number was 75, so at that time I was pretty healthy, did not have any high school football injuries, could not get any deferments, so I decided to go into Navy ROTC at the University of Missouri and was a naval officer and served 13 months off the coast of Vietnam on a refrigeration ship. And I think there were three of those guys. This has been 40 years later that I still keep in contact with, and good guys. And we all were basically a band of brothers, as the movies say. That really happens when you're in a conflict environment. People tend to close around each other, and make sure that they're all protected, and it's one for all and all for one. Survive and get back safely. I was the weapons officer on the ship, and our weapons were not very sophisticated. We didn't have missiles. We had guns, small caliber guns, and 3-inch 50s. That for aircraft, we would shoot basically shells that would fragment, explode like shrapnel, and try to knock down a plane on that basis, which is not very good. The scariest moment was we were strafed a couple times by Vietnamese MiGs, and I don't know why they didn't shoot at us. They were probably 200 or 300 feet off the air, afterburners going and flying over, and just scare the heck out of you. And you think they're going to turn around and come back, and they did. Live combat. We had some people that would be brought out to our ship when we were in port to take out to the carriers, people that were hurt on the riverine. We also, you make a good point, I learned how to give blood in the Navy because we were healthy, we weren't directly in combat, so every 30 days we get a needle stuck in us to give a pint of blood to the guys that were on base land in Vietnam that need the blood from wounds and things like that.
Who was the first president you voted for, and why did you choose him?
Well, I voted for George McGovern, the senator from South Dakota, on two accounts. Number one, his original running mate was a guy named Senator Tom Eagleton from Missouri. I grew up in Missouri. And number two, he was our first anti-war candidate, and he ran against Richard Nixon. And I was in Vietnam then. I voted absentee, and I just wanted to get out of it. I just wanted the war to end.
Did you acquire any skills that helped you later on in life when you were serving?
Management skills. I went on board the ship, a 22-year-old ensign. I had 26 guys in my group, none of whom had a college education, and looking for leadership. And so the Navy, there's a group called Chief Petty Officers that are they're not officers, but they're the highest enlisted people in the Navy, and they really run the Navy. They would say, Mr. Meierhoffer, you just stand back, we'll keep you appraised of what's going on, we will administer discipline if it's necessary, but they run the Navy. You sit there and we do the paperwork and have leadership. These guys were the old salts that they talked about. Very competent, capable people. Wonderful people. Well, Kaleb, thank you for letting me do this. I enjoyed doing this. This was fun. You were professional how you handled it.
I like it. Did you go to the movies at all, or just at the beach? Well, when you lived in Kansas, so there was no beach. But did you go to the movies?
Well, I live in Missouri. I was on the other side of the state line. I'm still a Missouri Tiger. I know that's hard for you to fathom, but it's nice that you're an equal opportunity interviewer. Is there a segue into that question?
No, that is. It goes from one section.
Okay. Just no.